Hi, it's Amber, musician and teacher, with 5 tips to sight reading proficiency. If you've had trouble sight reading, here are 5 great tips with a special bonus tip at the very end. Number 1 is know your landmark notes. The landmark notes are illustrated here. In the bass clef, the line between the 2 dots is F. We have middle C, which is easy to remember. And the G line, this line here, is circled by the G clef, or the treble clef. So this is G, C, and F. Once you know those solid, we add C, which is the second space from the bottom, and C, which is the second space from the top. And lastly, if you know the top line is F in the treble clef, the bottom line is G in the bass clef. If you know these notes solid, then step 2 is knowing your intervals. Being able to recognize intervals on the music is very important in sight reading. We have line to space, which would be a second, a fourth, a sixth, or an eighth. Those are the even line to space. Then if we have space to space or line to line, those are the odd numbers, a third, a fifth, and a seventh. Once you can recognize these intervals on the page, it's much easier to sight read. Also, recognizing the intervals with your fingers on the keyboard is important. So know what a third feels like, know what a fifth feels like, know what a sixth feels like, know what an octave feels like, and that way you'll be able to find it without looking at your hands. Number 3, keyboard topography. Being able to find these notes on the keyboard is very important. It's like if you've ever learned the typewriter, you memorized where all those letters are. It's the same with the keyboard. Knowing where those notes are under your fingers is going to help with sight reading. So learning to find the notes by touch and not by sight. Number 4. Don't look at your hands. If you look at your hands, you're not looking at the music, and that way you won't know what you're playing. So keep your eyes focused on the music and find those notes with your fingers by touch and by hearing. And number 5, don't be afraid to play wrong notes. Do you want to keep playing without stopping, which is sight reading? We're not learning the piece, we're just sight reading it. So keep going, keep the rhythm going, and even if you play a wrong note, it's okay. You can always go back and fix it. And those are your 5 tips. Now I promised you a bonus tip, actually 2 bonus tips. You want to look at the notes on your music as a group. Just as you're learning to read, you learn letter by letter by letter and sounding it out, like P, A, no, O. And then when you become proficient, you can just read the word, piano. It's the same with reading music. If you look at every note it's going to totally slow you down and you won't be able to sight read very well. So the trick is to be able to look at a group like a word. So say there's a chord, to be able to look at that whole chord, look at the whole measure, look at the whole phrase. And that way, your sight reading will totally improve. So you're not looking at your hands, you're looking at the music, and you're able to focus on more. And the second bonus tip is you've got to look ahead. When you're playing piano, if you just concentrate on where you're at, you're going to be late to the next notes. And that's especially true when you're going from line to line. You get to the end of a line, and if you haven't looked where you're going, you're not going to be ready to play it. So you've got to learn how to take it all in, and that way, and look ahead, and that way your fingers will be positioned and you'll be ready to play. So, recapping. Number 1, know your landmark notes. Number 2, intervals. Being able to recognize those intervals instead of having to figure out, oh, is that an F and a C? If you can see that, oh, that's a fifth, boom, you'll be all set. So know what those intervals look like. And know how they feel with your fingers, with your hands. Know how that feels, and you'll be able to find it without looking. Number 3, keyboard topography. Learn where those notes are, just like in a typewriter. Know where those notes are. And number 4, don't look at your hands. Focus on the music. And number 5 is don't be afraid to play wrong notes. Keep going, and you can always fix it later. And your bonus tips, try to focus on a whole measure or whole phrase. Look ahead, know where you're going, and you'll become proficient in sight reading. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to my channel for more tips. And you can like, share, comment, ask me questions, and I will be there to answer. Happy learning!